What's up, everybody? On today's show, it is a happy Halloween to everybody out there. Anything scarier than maybe an LSU-Mizzou rematch in Atlanta? Watch out, Bama and Georgia. We'll get you caught up on all the latest news going on around the conference. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. This episode brought to you by the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our promo code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Let's jump into it. Plenty to discuss. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff.
Around the conference.
And we start over at LSU as they're preparing for their biggest game of the season, heading to Tuscaloosa to play the Alabama Crimson Tide. And Brian Kelly talking on Monday with some disappointing news for LSU fans. Tons of injuries across their defense. And coming off their bye week, Brian Kelly announced that defensive tackle Mekhi Wingo, who did not play against Auburn, had surgery and is going to be out 6 weeks. Wingo was, of course, preseason, all SEC on a ton of those watch lists and all that sort of stuff, and have been very good since transferring over to Mizzou. Had a nice season for LSU last year and was having a nice year this year. Brian Kelly saying clearly we'd love to have Mekhi back in the lineup, but he has an injury. We have depth. We have good players that will step up, be ready to play at a high level. It's part of football in this game. If you lose one guy, you're not able to answer the bell, then you're not very good. Now, the bigger concern for LSU is secondary. Zy Alexander, their best cover corner, he got injured in the Army game. He is out. And then a couple other guys who've been in and out of LSU's lineup throughout the year, Denver Harris, the A&M transfer, and Deuce Chestnut, the Syracuse transfer. Brian Kelly ruling all three of those guys out for the Alabama game. So this is going to be a big test of LSU's defense, which already wasn't great, right? Already having issues, and now they're down even more guys. Some good news offensively. Offensive lineman Emory Jones, who had been dealing with a sprained ankle, he will be back for the Alabama game. So kind of the weird conundrum here for LSU is you're at full strength offensively, but your already not great defense is really going to be tested. So, I mean, can we have a score fest here? Is this going to be like another 52-49 type game like Bama Tennessee was a year ago? Very well could be. Some guys to watch for LSU. Andre, Sam, and Major Burns, those are their two starting safeties. Sage Ryan, former nickel, he's going to play primarily starting corner spot. And then the other corner spot probably going to be divvied up between Ashton Stamps, the freshman, and LaTerrence Welsh, the sophomore. A lot of inexperience there. Jermaine Burton, Amari Nyblack, those guys probably licking their chops right now at going after LSU's secondary. Now, on the other side, Alabama, Nick Saban, he talked to the media on Monday, again, saying it's a big challenge taking on LSU. He said, look, they're the number one offensive team in the country. It starts with their quarterback, Jayden Daniels. So the guy's a phenomenal player, dual threat player, great passer, makes plays with his feet. He's fast, and not only can he scramble to run, he can scramble to throw. Of course, Daniels led LSU to a win over Alabama a year ago. Saban said he killed us last year. Guy was a really good player a year ago, really good player now. I think overall they execute their offense to perfection, and it starts with him because he makes the right reads relative to runs and passes and the zone option and passing down plays. Saban said his team is going to have to be very disciplined when playing Jayden Daniels and LSU this Saturday. He said it's going to be very challenging for us to be able to play that kind of disciplined football that you need to be able to play, not make mistakes, tackle well, and be physical, try to win the line of scrimmage. That is going to be challenging. And Nick Saban went on to say, he said, you got to read, run, pass, and they've got a good play action game. They'll 7-man protect, throw vertical routes. They're probably made they've probably made more explosive plays running and passing than any team we've played in recent years. You got to guard them. You got to keep them cut off. You got to be disciplined with your eye control. So you have the best opportunity to do that. Lastly, Saban said, if you let guys get behind you, you get people cut off, you're probably going to give up some of those big plays. LSU hoping to make some of those big plays against Bama. One more note on Bama. They have gotten some consistency at that left tackle spot. Caden Proctor, the number one lineman in the 2023 class. He's a freshman, kind of coming into his own at left tackle. Saban saying Proctor's getting better. I think he's gained experience at learning. What we want him to do is not worry so much about making a mistake that he's not playing aggressive. That's what we've been working with him on. I think he's getting better, getting more confident. I think he's played fairly well. So, again, going to be fascinating. I think this is good on good. Alabama's offense has been coming along here in recent weeks. Jalen Milroe's been playing a little bit better, but we know LSU's offense, they're going to be really good. Can Alabama's defense force a turnover to get some stops? And can Alabama's offense take advantage of LSU's struggling defense? It's just going to be a fascinating game. I really think it's going to be high scoring. We'll see what happens in Tuscaloosa this Saturday. Of course, we'll talk more about it throughout the week. Other news going on around the conference. Over at Georgia, Kirby Smart, just like Saban praising Jayden Daniels, Kirby Smart praising Mizzou quarterback Brady Cook. Cook's third start against Georgia coming this Saturday, and it's made a big leap. Very efficient this year. He's averaging a career best 9.3 yards per passing attempt, has a passer rating that ranks third among all SEC quarterbacks. Kirby Smart saying, look, he's very bright, sharp, athletic, gets the ball out in something like 2.2 seconds. So he knows where to go with the ball. He understands coverages. Like all quarterbacks you play that have experience, they make good decisions, don't make mistakes. He said he broke the record for consecutive number of passes without an interception. Guy doesn't make very many mistakes, and he is accurate and athletic. So I don't know what else you can ask a quarterback to be than those things. Kirby did tweet out also on Monday evening, Saturday, we need Dog Nation to affect the game. If you can talk when you leave, you didn't yell enough. Obviously, Kirby and Georgia understand the massive, massive game they have this Saturday. If Georgia can, or if Mizzou can win this game against Georgia, Mizzou will be in the driver's seat to go to Atlanta. And same thing with LSU. If they can beat Alabama, granted they have the loss to Ole Miss and some tiebreakers could come into play, but Ole Miss still has to play Georgia. If they lose that one, LSU wins out, LSU will be going to Atlanta. So kind of a weird thing. All summer we picked Georgia and Bama in the SEC title game. What if it was Mizzou LSU? That would certainly be a twist of fate. A couple more tidbits here. Mississippi State Zach Arnett is not tipping his hand on which quarterback will start this weekend against Kentucky. Obviously, Mississippi State struggling right now at 4-4. They still need 2 wins to get the bowl eligibility on Saturday in Starkville. It will probably be Mike Wright again. He got the start for Mississippi State the last couple of weeks with Will Rogers dealing with that shoulder injury. But on Monday, Arnett was asked if 4-star freshman Chris Parson could get the start against Kentucky if Mike Wright or Rogers is not ready to go. He shut down the idea of getting into specifics. But Mike Wright struggled last week, completed 50% of his passes for 161 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. So we'll see who takes the field for Mississippi State as they take on Kentucky from Starkville Saturday night on the SEC Network. And speaking of Kentucky, Mark Stoops and the Wildcats looking to snap their 3-game losing streak heading to Starkville. And Mark Stoops saying, look, traditionally we've had a tough time down there in Starkville, so we need to get that fixed. Kentucky has never won a game at Mississippi State under Mark Stoops. They are 0-5. Their last victory in Starkville dates back to 2008. And Mark Stoops talked about Mike Wright, if he does indeed get the start on Saturday. So he's a guy you've got to keep in the pocket. Remember, Vandy and Mike Wright beat Kentucky just a year ago. So Mark Stoops knows all about that. Again, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Saturday night on the SEC Network. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we will continue to go around the conference. More tidbits going around the conference in just a sec. And this episode is presented to you by our friends over at the Game Time app. Look, you should not have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way for you to buy tickets for all the sporting events and really any event that you're looking for near you. They got comedy, music, theater, and all the sporting events you could want. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat. That's my favorite part. You can see what the view looks like from your seat. Isn't that the most important part when you're buying tickets? But Game Time takes out all the guesswork out of buying tickets. They offer their best price guarantee, and they're the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. Again, go see the view from your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. And those all-in prices show your total up front. So you know you're getting a great deal. You're not going to be tricked by hidden fees and all that sort of thing. But take the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Game Time app. If you go download the Game Time app right now, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege. That will get you $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account, redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That gets you $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Going along here, Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers coming back and checking us out each and every day. We'll have our buddy Chris Marler join us on tomorrow's show and get his thoughts on the big Alabama-LSU game happening this weekend. And, of course, on Fridays, you can catch the Locked On College preview show where they go around the entire world of college football, not just SEC like we are doing here. All right, we got more stuff to get into, more tidbits as we continue to go around the conference. We've been updating you with some of the big news coming out of Monday from the latest press conferences and all that with the coaches. And now next stop, we head on up to College Station at Texas A&M as Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies facing off against one of the better quarterbacks in the conference in Jaxson Dart. The Aggies heading out to Oxford, and Jaxson Dart over 2,000 yards, 14 touchdowns through the air this year. But he can also run as well, 300 rushing yards with 7 rushing touchdowns. And Jimbo Fisher asked for his thoughts on Jaxson Dart this weekend. He said his playmaker. It's the first thing I think of. He can throw it, has a very strong arm, can get the ball down the field, gets the shot plays where they need to. He can improvise and run. And then they have planned quarterback runs they run off as well, whether it's cheat runs, runs up inside. He can run in between the tackles or outside. Very gifted guy and a lot of ability. So A&M looking for that upset win over Ole Miss. Keep saying it, 5-3. They have to go to Oxford this weekend, still have to go to LSU at the end of the year. 7-5 for the Aggies. Is that good enough for Jimbo to have the confidence of the Aggie faithful? We will see. But a big win this weekend, an upset win over Ole Miss and Oxford would be huge for Jimbo Fisher, big feather in his cap. Speaking of the Rebels over at Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, he was gushing over A&M's roster, especially on the defensive line. He said, look, these guys are absolutely loaded. It's kind of a mind-blowing collection of talent. It really is like an NFL roster. Height, weight, speed, explosiveness. They got receivers that could score at any time, great running backs, defense playing as well as anybody in the country, and the collection of they have on the defensive line has to be one of the best ever. Man, Lane Kiffin knows how to gush over your team, make you feel good. But the Aggies, they're second in the country with 33 sacks, of course, lead the SEC. But the Rebels, they have 30. Lane Kiffin said, I'm not excited for our O-line coach. I can tell you that watching these cut-ups, A&M has done a great job of collecting players, putting them together on that D-line. It is a great challenge. Kiffin was asked about Ole Miss being top 10 in the coaches poll this week. And now the Rebels have been in the top 10 at least once in the polling for 3 straight years. Kiffin said, it doesn't matter to me except where do you finish? It's good that it brings attention to our program to be able to do that, especially as you're going up against a program you normally would think would be in the top 10 3 years in a row with their roster over at A&M. But be a big win for Jimbo Fisher and Ole Miss, win this one and continue to stay in the or for Lane Kiffin, stay in the top 10 and see how many more wins they can get down the stretch. Over at Tennessee, it was announced Tennessee would have to get through the rest of the season, of course, losing one of their best players a couple days back, Kamal Haddon. He suffered that season-ending injury against Alabama. On Monday, Josh Heupel was able to reflect on a loss. He said extremely disappointing for him. It's a young guy that came into our program that continued to grow on the field, but off the field as well. You just hate seeing the season ends up being taken away from him. Hard for those guys emotionally. But Heupel said he was pleased with the play from his other defensive backs on Saturday without Haddon in there. He said, I thought the guys had the opportunity to play, stepped in, did some really good things. We're going to need to continue to grow there to perform the way we want to down the stretch. Now, Heupel's asked about BYU transfer linebacker Keenan Pili, who has been missing for a large portion of the season, played well against Virginia to start the year, but has been out since then, basically with an arm injury. And on Monday, Heupel told reporters that Pili's return will have to wait at least another week. He said Keenan is not ready to go in this one, so we're going to continue to monitor his progress and his ability to get back on the field here late in the year. Pili returning against a team like UConn wouldn't make much sense anyway, so not surprising they're going to wait till after week 10. But the Vols would certainly love to have him back when Georgia comes to town very soon, and looks like Elijah Herring will continue to get those reps in his absence. Over at Arkansas, Sam Pittman announcing or talking on Monday with the media and talked about his defensive back, Dwight McLaughlin, who has been missing from the lineup here. And Sam Pittman telling reporters that the preseason first-team selection was healthy for their game against Mississippi State after suffering a concussion against A&M, but he did not see the field. He said McLaughlin is trying to work his way into playing time. That tells you a little something right there. Pittman went on to say he was a full go. He's still trying to work his way into playing time. He was able to play last week. It's just right now he's not starting for us. Something to keep an eye on there, of course. Arkansas trying to snap their losing streak coming off their bye week. They need a win in a bad way. They headed to Florida this weekend. Sam Pittman also closed off Arkansas's practices this week, getting ready for Florida. He said he wanted to eliminate any distractions for a team that has really struggled over the last few weeks and the 6-game losing streak. Of course, fired their offensive coordinator, Dan Enos. Pittman said, we've had plenty of distractions. I'm just trying to close it, make it about us this week. We don't have a problem with y'all coming to practice. It's just something with Kenny and his new role and things of that nature. I'm trying to take any type of added pressure he has off of him. Now, Arkansas's foe this week, Florida, Billy Napier and the Gators, they're looking to bounce back from a trouncing at the hands of Georgia. And Billy Napier saying, Arkansas, there's plenty of talent on that roster still. He told reporters, he said, they're playing pretty good defense for the most part, but he said, I think Arkansas, while their record doesn't reflect it, has been in every football game. This is a team that hasn't lost a lot of close games. I think they played really good defense for the most part. I know offensively they made a change. I know Sam Pittman personally, a ton of respect for him as a coach and a man. I do think they're a lot closer than their record will indicate. So this is going to be a challenge. Jalen Braxton has been playing well for Arkansas in their secondary. Again, we'll see if McLaughlin can get back out there. But I don't know, an interesting one. What is Florida right now coming off of that tough loss to Georgia? Their schedule is absolutely brutal after this game against Arkansas. And for Arkansas, win this one, maybe you still have a chance at bowl eligibility. But you got to win this one. Over at Auburn, Hugh Freeze and his staff coming off of that 27-13 win against Mississippi State, where Peyton Thorne played his best game in an Auburn uniform, 20 for 26, 230 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Snapped an 0-for-4 skid against SEC teams, got their first conference win. Hugh Freeze saying Peyton Thorne was really confident in the game plan. It showed. He said he probably left 2 throws out there that he should have thrown, in my opinion. He'll agree when he sees the film. He had 2 other RPOs that probably should have been thrown. I thought he left the pocket a little early a couple times, but he did some good things. Took care of the football. And outside of those few plays, it was hard to argue that he didn't play really, really, really solid. And our kids responded to that around him. Auburn taking on Vanderbilt this Saturday. Vandy has yet to win an SEC game this year. The all-time series tied 21-21-1 between the programs. One more note on Auburn. Hugh Freeze was asked about his defense coordinator, Ron Roberts, who's done a really good job. He says he's one of the best in the nation at calling a game. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. And you want to play to your strengths. And one of Ron's strengths is definitely calling a game day football game from a defensive perspective and making adjustments. He's really gifted at that. 3 o'clock Central from Nashville on the SEC Network. It'll be Commodores and Tigers this coming weekend, Auburn and Vandy. And there you have it. That was the latest news going on around the conference. When we return, we'll hit on the news of the SEC Players of the Week and some game times for next week's conference games that's coming your way in just a sec. And, of course, this episode presented to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Look, you can score throughout this NFL season with our friends at FanDuel. They are America's #1 sports book. And right now, we've been telling you guys, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options from spreads to player props, over-unders, and much more. And they got college games on there as well. It's not just the NFL. If you want to get in and feel a little spicy, you think that Mizzou can beat Georgia straight up this week, you like LSU straight up over Alabama, they got those there for you. Why not get a parlay going? Take a big chance on both those upsets happening, and it will pay out big time. Go check them out, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the rest of this college and NFL season right there. It is FanDuel. They are the official partner of the NFL. All right, rolling along here, Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day, and hope you guys are having a happy and safe Halloween out there. Cold front coming through across SEC country this week, so hopefully you guys are staying warm out there. Looking like it's going to warm up across the southern region this weekend, so won't be too hot, but not going to be as cold as it is right now for the games happening this weekend across the SEC landscape. But let's get into it. There was some other news we wanted to get to, including the SEC Players of the Week as we close the book on Week 9, and some interesting names being named to this group. Over at Georgia, wide receiver Ladd McConkey was the Offensive Player of the Week following his performance against the Florida Gators. Ladd McConkey, 135 receiving yards on 6 receptions, picking up a touchdown as the Georgia Bulldogs routed the Florida Gators. So congrats to Ladd McConkey. He has been outstanding, over 100 yards receiving this week. He was very, very good. But on the flip side, Defensive Player of the Week, how about Edgerrin Cooper over at A&M? We named him one of our winners of the week. Picked up 7 tackles and a sack in the Aggies win against South Carolina. He was outstanding. And then a co-defensive player of the week was Ole Miss safety Trey Washington, who had a couple of interceptions against Vanderbilt. Charles Campbell, he was named the SEC's Special Teams Player of the Week. He was big in the win over Kentucky. Hit 4 field goals, contributed 15 points on the night. Auburn offensive lineman Gunnar Britton was co-offensive lineman of the week as Auburn put up a season-high 416 yards of offense on the night. He was the highest-graded lineman in the game with a rating of 93. And then Tennessee's John Campbell was the other co-offensive lineman of the week, helping the Vols put up, 250 rush yards on Kentucky. Outstanding. Ole Miss's Cedric Johnson was the SEC's D lineman of the week with 7 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss and a sack. And then Auburn center Connor Liu was the freshman of the week in the SEC, playing every snap of the Tigers and did not allow a sack. A few other notes before we get out of here. Over at the SEC TV office, they announced kickoff times and networks for the Week 11 slate of games. And here's what we got. So this is not this weekend. This is next week. We will have Alabama at Kentucky. That'll be noon Eastern on ESPN. So an early game there at Kroger Field. Vandy and South Carolina will also be an early game. That'll be on the SEC Network. I'm sure a lot of you not running for your clicker to tune into Vandy, South Carolina. Shane Beamer really needs to win that one. Clark Lee really needs to win that one. On that note, the matchup between Florida and LSU, they're keeping the flex on that one. It will either be the 2:30 Central CBS game, or it'll be a night game on ESPN or SEC Network. So you got to think, if LSU beats Alabama, CBS probably going to pick that one up. If they lose and Florida wins this week, maybe it's a sexy enough matchup to put on ESPN. We'll see. But Florida LSU could be CBS, could be ESPN, could be SEC Network. So we'll see on that one. Ole Miss versus Georgia, also in the same scheduling slot, as well as Tennessee, Missouri. So again, a lot has to happen. If Missouri beats Georgia, maybe Mizzou gets the CBS slot against Tennessee. If Georgia wins and Ole Miss beats A&M, maybe Ole Miss, Georgia is the CBS slot. So, again, should be an interesting slate next week. Auburn and Arkansas, they will face off at 4 p.m. Eastern on the SEC Network, and Mississippi State versus A&M will close out the evening on ESPN2 at 6:30 Central. So there you have it. That is the latest TV news and slate for next week's games. And, of course, we got a great slate happening this weekend. We're going to preview all the games throughout this week. But, of course, the headliners, LSU at Alabama is the big one in the West. That will be the night game on CBS this week. And then, of course, the other one, Georgia hosting Mizzou. That'll be the afternoon CBS game. And, again, that one is for SEC East driver's seat, really. And if Mizzou can do the impossible, can they upset Georgia? Keep in mind, that game was very close last year. Mizzou was leading that game all the way until the fourth quarter when Stetson Bennett and the Georgia offense finally turned it on. But going to be fascinating to watch that one. And then the other games this week, of course, we got A&M at Ole Miss early. We got UConn at Tennessee early, and we got Arkansas at Florida early. Jacksonville State will be at South Carolina. Don't look now. Jacksonville State's actually 7-2. So it's actually be a difficult game there for South Carolina. And then in the afternoon, we'll get Auburn at Vandy. And then at night, we'll get Kentucky at Mississippi State. So a really good slate in the conference this week. I think we've got some very intriguing games. Of course, some monster matchups, but some games that are, I think might have some upsets this weekend. I really do. I think we're going to have some interesting storylines as some teams try to get to bowl eligibility as well. But that is going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. I'm Chris Gordy. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow, talking all things SEC football right here on Locked On SEC. You guys have a great day. Shout out to our everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out each and every day.